It is so amazing to have you in Bogotá, Colombia. Thank you very much thank you very much for accepting to speak to me during your visit.
My pleasure. I'm very excited to be here. I can honestly say that I have waited, it's been 30 years
I
of
know.
plus, and I'm so excited to be in Colombia for the first time. Yeah.
Let me tell you, it's been a long time coming, and yeah, it's been 30 years
Yeah,
away.
yeah, 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 yeah.
It's
Well, I'm
amazing.
ready. I'm ready. I hope the fans are, because I'm ready. Yeah.
They must definitely be.
Yeah, yeah.
How was Argentina? I saw you at the Plaza de Mayo. Tell me a bit
Sure,
about
sure,
what you felt,
sure,
how you felt.
sure. I feel a very strong connection. A big part of my DNA as a musician and as an activist, a big part of it is my knowledge of the resistance struggles throughout Latin America against fascism, against the dictatorships, and for human rights. And so every time I'm in Argentina, I visit the Plaza de Mayo. I've had the opportunity to meet with the mothers and the grandmothers of the disappeared before, but it was great to connect with them. And I think that, the human rights struggles of people around the world are very much connected to the music I've been involved in for the last 30 years.
Of
And so
course.
to be able to, one, sort of hear their stories firsthand and then celebrate resistance at the show afterwards felt like a very connecting thing.
Let's talk about resistance in 2026.
Sure.
What do we need to do to resist?
Yeah, yeah.
How do we pull through
Yeah,
this?
well, I'll admit I'm not that familiar with the current Colombian political situation, so
I can tell you a bit about it because
I'm not gonna tell you what to think about that. But I can say that certainly in North America, certainly in the United States,
Yeah.
and in Argentina and in Chile, there is this rise of. There's this rise of a fascist mentality, and
Absolutely.
we see it every day, in the United States, and it's very dangerous. It's very racist. It's anti-immigrant. It's pro-authoritarian. Which is very worrying. But on the other hand, what we're also seeing is a rising resistance to fascism, a rising resistance to anti-immigrant and to racist sentiments. And my music has been a part of those ideals, from the very inception. And so there's no better time than now to be playing it.
Yeah. You arrive in our country at a very trying time in the world, as you just said. We're about to do elections, presidential elections, which makes your presence in our country the more relevant as well. And I have a couple questions regarding the role of music in these trying times. I wanted to ask you how you feel the role of music and activism has changed over the course of the last 30 years.
How it's changed. I don't know that it's changed significantly. I think that the role of certainly I can speak about the United States for one. There's never been a successful social movement in the USA that has not had a great soundtrack.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I've found that from squats in Berlin to festivals in Mexico City, that music can put wind in the sails of those fighting for justice. It can steel the spines of the grassroots workers for human rights. Those are the people who are involved in the real creative change that is happening. Music can, be a soundtrack in the office when they're organizing. It can be a unifying force at a festival or at a show like tonight. People feel like it's a safe space to rebel, but the music that is, or the message that has been the thread throughout my entire career is that the world is not going to change itself. That is up to you. And while that may sound like a daunting task, when the world has changed in progressive, radical, or even revolutionary ways, it has been changed by people no different than anyone watching this or listening to this.
Right.
It's average, ordinary people standing up in their time, standing up to the issues of their day. History, like music, is not something that happens. It's something that we make.
Right. You mentioned it being a daunting task, especially for new generations.
Sure.
Philosophers such as Byung-Chul Han from Korea have spoken a lot about these new generations and how tired they are of everything.
Yes. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
In that sense, music could actually provide relief and joy
Sure, which it should, yeah.
to the exhaustion, the overall
Yeah, yeah.
exhaustion. But how else do you think we as young people can connect to or disconnect from being
Yes.
daunted?
Yes, yeah. Well, I'm one thing. Speaking of connection, like the revolution is not going to happen on TikTok. In a way. You know what I mean?
It's a bit of Jill Scott Heron.
You know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean? Exactly. But what I've seen, in practice on the streets when we had the ICE invasion of the occupation of Los Angeles, the resistance to it in some of the biggest rallies we've ever seen in LA revolved around music. They were celebrations of resistance. The same as in Minneapolis when I went there to go play that recent show with Bruce Springsteen after the government agents had murdered a couple of protesters. It was music was a galvanizing event. I hear Rage Against the Machine music in the streets at every one of these protests. On March the 28th, we're going to have what is likely going to be the biggest protest in the history of the United States of America, the No Kings protest on that day. And there will be the soundtrack to that will be some of the music that I've been involved in. Some of my favorite bands have been involved in. And so, how do people, it seems like there feels like this is a moment of great urgency, and that it's kind of a now or never moment. That if you want a world that is civilized, if you want a world of peace, decency, human rights, where you look towards a future that is not filled with sort of war and authoritarian subjugation, it's time now to get off your ass. If music is something, if you can have an ear pod in while you're doing it, great, but it's really now or never.
Yeah, you mentioned to the newspaper El Tiempo on the interview that you did a few weeks ago before you arrived, something about music and politics that I would like to discuss with you and ask you, because it creates a bit of conflict in my mindset. And you said, all music is political.
Yes.
Is sort of what you said.
Sure.
But I have also read many philosophers from early 20th century who say that the moment that music turns political, it loses its artistic aura, or it ceases to be art. Can those two philosophical ideas be reconciled?
We'll find out tonight.
That's going to be amazing.
That question will be answered by the end of tonight's concert. But I will say I believe strongly that all music is political. And the question I would ask you or those philosophers is, can you be neutral on a moving train? If there is a train that is moving towards fascism, you can either put coal in the fuel chamber to help it go towards fascism. You can destroy the tracks to try to stop it, do whatever you can to stop it, or you can stand on the sidelines and watch it go by. So either fascism will happen, fascism will be stopped. There's only two results, but there's three things you can do. You can help fascism, stop fascism, or wait for fascism to happen or not. That's why I say that no music is neutral. Because if you're on the, first of all, I love plenty of escapists. Don't get me wrong. I will say we're listening to Public Enemy on the way over though. But there's plenty of bands that I like K-pop band. There's plenty of music that I enjoy, and people don't not stop listening to non-political music because of this interview. But I recognize that escapism, not just in music, in film and in whatever art, is the bread and circuses of our time in a way. If it's just a relief valve, and people do need a relief, and it's totally fine to do it, but not to recognize that when you are disengaging from the struggles of your time, you are now defaulting to the worst.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's talk about music and inequality, because we live in an era also that not only projects itself as a dangerously fascist regime taking over the world, but also a place where musicians, we got on the one hand, the International Federation for the Phonographic Industry saying that they just, made their biggest year ever with $30 billion. And on the other hand, you got whole bunch of musicians.
Yes, yeah. Where is the money?
Where's the cash?
Yeah, where is the money? Yeah.
Can that system be fixed?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I think has been the most if I had another life to lead, these last 30 years, I would have been organizing musicians. That there is not a powerful, in the United States or globally, musicians union to really stand up for the rights of artists. There's not. There's I've belonged to the musicians union for almost 35 years in LA. And you know what? If you play French horn in the LA Philharmonic, you can get dental insurance. That's great. But with regards to these broader issues of a few companies and a few people, amassing tremendous wealth, where there are a lot of, hip hop artists who are homeless, who had big hits in the 90s. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Rock and roll musicians who can't get health care, are suffering from disease, and their family is just destitute because of it. There's a gross inequality. I always think that the answer to any societal problems of inequality is solidarity, and it's organization. And it's like, if Metallica and Chapel Roan and Turnstile and pick, the young blood and pick the 10 biggest artists in the world, decided, we're done. We're not going to lift a finger. We're not going to make a cent for, the Lollapalooza Festival or for our publishers, this, that, and the other, until the system changes in such a way. It would take that kind of solidarity, I believe, to change it, because it's not going to happen otherwise. Yeah.
I find your mention and your commitment to the word solidarity to be profoundly admirable, because I also believe that people nowadays confuse solidarity with empathy, where and I believe that solidarity, empathy is very much in vogue. People talk about it a lot on social media. Young kids talk a lot about being empathetic to other people's issues, but I do believe that the real word that should be in vogue is solidarity, because it moves action. Because
That's right.
It compels you to do stuff, not just say.
That's great. Empathy is more of a feeling, and it's a very important feeling to be able to stand in someone else's shoes, to understand, to be able to have your worldview be one that is broader than your own experience. Solidarity is about power. Solidarity is about power. And recognize, the non-recognition of the power of solidarity is what keeps the world in chains. All it would take. We had the first general strike in the United States in 80 years, the other, couple months ago, in Minneapolis. And during the George Floyd, police murder, like, there were several baseball teams just stopped playing because they were just so mad at how fucked up the country was. But there's these little glimpses of, that's the tip of the iceberg. If you were to do that 5 days in a row, baseball would be over. If you were to stop, the buses would stop for 5 days in a city. Someone would have to accede to your demands. That's really the power of solidarity. That's why I think unions are very important. But beyond unions, which are often compromised by big business in the United States, but just recognizing that people have power simply by putting the tools down.
Yeah. When you're a young person and you want to create action and move things forward, because you have solidarity as a goal, what does it take for you to get organized? You've experienced.
Sure.
You've been connected to unions.
Yes.
You've been connected to organized movements of rebellion and revolution.
Yeah.
What would you say is the first thing that you have to do in order to get that solidarity moving?
Yeah. Well, I would say as an organizer, I'm a great musician. There are certain skill sets of the it is work. It is hard work. It is work. Like people at this show tonight will be screaming about revolutionary things. They'll be outside my hotel doing the same. I'm not the one doing the work. This music has perhaps, has perhaps inspired people to do that work. But the creative solutions to how the world is going to be changed for the better are going to be, I believe, new ideas. Perhaps with North Stars like solidarity as your guide, with empathy in your heart. I'm not going to tell 20-year-olds how to change the world right now. There's a lot of historical evidence of how people have worked hard to make that historical change, and you should not be ignorant of it, and you should use that as some of the building blocks and some of the guides of how people have done it given their historical situations. But in this historical situation, I'm putting my trust in young people to figure that shit out for themselves.
Amazing. Yeah. Listen, I only got a couple minutes left, so I got a few things I want to say. First of all, Solidarity Forever, which you've performed before, has a very interesting story. It's a union chant, but it's also patriotic and it's religious in origin, which is amazing how it just blends all those ideas together.
And patriotism and religion can very much feed into solidarity and making a better world, I believe.
Much more than fascism and many other things that we think they lead to. How can songs stand the test of time and represent such diverse causes in 2026?
Yeah, that's interesting because, like, you just off the top of my head, you take a couple of songs that in 2026, matter in the streets. One of them would be "Solidarity Forever," which I've heard, in the last couple of weeks. One of them would be like Rage Against the Machine's "Killing in the Name," which is a song that I wrote. I was giving a guitar lesson in 1991, and all of a sudden, that song is one which you hear everyone at these rallies. Like, there's something. I think it's two measures. One is there's something intrinsic. First of all, in order for a song to be politically good, it has to be a good song. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure there are great treatises, in some crappy punk rock songs or crappy rock songs or crappy hip hop songs or whatever. But also the authenticity in connecting is what matters. You take those two songs, like "Solidarity Forever" was written for political purpose. It was written to unite laborers who spoke different languages, and with a religious hymn, with a religious
Glory, hallelujah.
glory, glory, hallelujah, with a religious hymn that they all sort of knew the melody of, and you put these new words to it, and all of a sudden you have Italians and Irish and Mexicans all singing a song, and they're experiencing solidarity through the song of solidarity. And I think that the Rage Against the Machine song is the same. Like, the thesis of "Killing in the Name," the "fuck you, I won't do what you tell me," it comes from Frederick Douglass, the anti-slavery, the abolitionist orator, said, "The moment I became a free man was not when I was loosed from my chains. It was when master said yes and I said no. That was the moment I was free." That's what "fuck you, I won't do what you tell me" is. It's a rejection of illegitimate authority. And so I think in the same way with the "Solidarity Forever," that's a universal, like, whether it's your parents, whether it's your boss, whether it's the government, whatever, like, the rejection of illegitimate authority is something that is innate in us, and that song frees it in the streets.
I'm very honored to have these few minutes to talk to you during this first visit. I hope it's not the last one.
Yeah, I hope not too. I guarantee it's not the last. I need to get back here.
I wish you will. I'll see you tonight. I'll see you on Saturday. I believe you're
Oh,
performing.
cool. Yeah, at the festival as well.
And I just want to say that when I was a kid, when I was 16 years old, "Killing in the Name" was a big song, but my song was "Freedom."
Freedom's a jam. Yeah.
That was an amazing song that really got me thinking about what was going on. Mr. Morello, once again.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your thoughtful question.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, guys.